Yeah, I'm getting ready. So, it's already going.
Oh, it's going.
Yeah. Put down.
Go ahead and talk about
So I,
Silent Old Fountains.
in the beginning,
Yeah.
just take as long as I want.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
So, in 2010, I was living in Athens, Georgia. I was working 3 jobs. I was working 80 hours a week. And I got burned out. I got fired from 2 of those jobs. So I had to move back home to Maryland with my parents. And I was living in my parents' guest room. I got a phone call from Andrew Brommel. His dad was my pastor growing up. That's the only way I knew him. And he asked me if I would play a show with him and a friend of his at the Auto Bar in Baltimore, Maryland. And I said yes because that was one of my favorite venues and I always wanted to play there. So I agreed to play with Andrew. We had 3 practices. 2 of them were just me and Andrew. I was playing drums, he was playing acoustic guitar and singing. And the 3rd one was with a keyboard player named Tom Hewinger. And we played a gig at the Auto Bar in Baltimore off those 3 practices with a band called the Old Liners and a band called Grandchildren. And off that gig, it went so well, we played a few more until Andrew finally decided that he would ask us to be in a band with him called Silent Old Mtns. From there, we recruited a local poet named Sam Whalen. He opened for us a few times doing really cool stuff. And we asked him to be part of the band. Shortly after, the same summer of 2011, we brought in Steve Youngkins. He played bass with us.
You didn't have a bass player before that?
Nope. No, it was just me, Andrew, and Tom musically first, like instrumentally first. It was just drums, acoustic guitar, and keyboard.
How do you think the whole band felt initially
Initially,
about the new members?
No, initially it was just
anything weird about the new members being involved?
No, initially it wasn't even a band. It was really just music. I mean, it was like my initial stance on the whole thing. I wasn't even planning on being in the state of Maryland initially for a long time. Andrew just was an old friend who played acoustic guitar. And as far as I know, Tom, our keyboard player, viewed him the same way. He was just a common friend who asked if we would play some gigs with him, so we did it, and we agreed to it. And when we brought on Sam and Steve, it wasn't even really like they were joining a band. They were just kind of playing gigs with us. Mm-hmm. It wasn't until we played, 20 or so gigs together that we really kind of realized, hey, we're in a band now. This is a cohesive thing. After the initial several gigs, we played in Pittsburgh and in Frostburg. That was our first weekend out. Looking back on it, it was extremely insignificant when it comes to bands touring and stuff like that. But for a young band where we were, it was kind of a cohesive thing for us.
So when do you think the band went from being a local act to being a regional act?
I mean, it took a solid year for us to gig and get accepted to the local big venue. I mean, for Frederick has several places to play. None of them are actual venues, but some are more hip than others, some are more exclusive than others. And it took us a year to play fucking Cafe NOLA. It took us a solid year to get into NOLA. And we played a lot of Frederick shows and we started getting momentum, and we spent about 9 months recording with Miles Vallejos on our debut record, Velvet Raccoon. It took us a very long time to record that record.
How long?
I mean, from inception to final product of the year, we actually spent about 9 months in the studio recording it. That was when we were still a 5-piece. Andrew, me, Tom, Sam, and Steve. And when we put it out, our CD release show was at the Church Street Pub, I believe, with the Marylanders.
Cool.
And Old Indian, I think. And man, we had a solid 150 people show up to one of the smallest bars in Frederick. It was a good time. It was it was the last show of our first tour. We went out to Milwaukee, Chicago, Minnesota. It was Silent Old Mtns on our first excursion into the Great White North. We bought an old school bus and toured in that. After that, we had momentum on our side. We had a new album out. It was getting reviewed. It was doing well. A couple magazines did articles on our album. It was fun. It was a good time.
The whole blog route.
Yeah, the whole thing. I mean, people that we didn't know were writing articles on our album. That's all you can ask for as a band. You know?
Yeah, absolutely.
People that you've never met before giving you accolades.
Right.
Yeah. So we did that whole thing.
Gorilla Magazine.
The whole, the local thing. Trebuchet Magazine of the UK, British magazine, did a couple articles on us. So it was enough to make us feel like we were doing a great job. Not necessarily enough to make us a household name, but...
When did you feel like the band possibly was turning into more of a household name?
I don't know if I ever would have said household name,
because
but...
I guess of the size of the band.
Yeah. But I mean, I think late 2012, early 2013, I mean, things definitely started to take a turn for the more legit. We were able to book a couple of tours. We had more... I mean, the venues and the shows we weren't playing were necessarily better, but we had more I guess, pull with our demands. We were getting paid more. We were playing more shows that fed us. We were getting, tabs. I mean, it makes sense to people that play music. Those are big things.
Can you relay
but,
to me the time period of your Midwestern tour, the second one, with Day Trotter, and the Man performance? How are you feeling in that?
Well, when we played, I guess around early 2013 is kind of, I guess, the strongest that the band ever got. We had a personnel change. Colin came on bass, and we kind of, as a band, cohesively really brought it all together. We went on a Midwestern tour. We went back to Wisconsin for a second time. We got to see a lot of our friends that lived out there that we met initially. We played a Day Trotter session, and anyone who knows independent music knows that Day Trotter is kind of the, Ed Sullivan show of indie bands. If you're an indie band and you want to make it, you play Day Trotter. And we got to do that, and we went out to the Day Trotter studio. We went through the process, we met the guys, we played our songs, it got published, and we were on top of the world. I know personally that was probably the absolute apex of my professional music career, was knowing that I got to do that in the same place that Carole King did it. And
Waylon Jennings
and Creed Bratton. Yeah, the Kinks. The Kinks freaking
did it.
The Zombies did it. The Zombies did it, and we did it.
That's pretty cool.
Knowing that, not me, but my band, my band of friends and brothers got to do the same thing that Carole King, the Kinks, and the Zombies did is something I'll take to my grave. And we did it.
Yeah, this goes on and on, too.
Yeah, it goes on and on. There's more than I can think of right now that I forget, but...
So, okay, and then Man, and then you guys...
Then we played with Man. Yeah, Man at the Auto Bar in Baltimore. We'd already played at the Auto Bar, the same venue, with Langhorne Slim, famous from State Farm commercials. and in music.
Would you say, so when I said household name, I was thinking, I guess you're still a regional act. So in Baltimore area, you guys played with the acts that were coming through town. So Flowbots came through town. So
Flowbots, we played with Flowbots, we played with Man, we played with Langhorne Slim.
Yeah.
We played with Astronautalist. No, and locally we got our feet wet. We were able to do a lot locally. Which was awesome, and we played to a lot of good crowds, and we were able to do a lot with our music and show a lot of people what we were doing. Baltimore as a whole, I think, recently has suffered from a lack of its own music scene, they still are able to sustain the venues that provide a national support. You're able to bring in national acts, but I think that the biggest thing that this area is lacking, both from Baltimore and DC, is an organic local music scene. And I think that it's unfortunate that the Silent Old Mountains happened in the middle of that drought. I think that Frederick, Maryland, by itself was able to sustain a better music scene than either of them, as far as I can tell. Neither of them were healthy. It was difficult to find bands from either scene to build relationships with, I think.
So, aside from all the accolades, it did hit a climax and then an immediate decline.
I would say that, about March of this year, of 2013, we hit a high point that all of us at the time thought was a jumping off point. Unfortunately, shortly after our day charter sessions, shortly after finishing writing of what was supposed to be a new record, we finished writing the new record and began pre-production for the new record. Things began to kind of slow down for the band. I wouldn't say any of us really saw it coming. Our shows were we were booking less frequent shows. The shows we were playing were...
What do you mean by less frequent? How many were you playing in comparison?
We went from playing, I would say, minimum 6 shows a month to playing 3 or 4 shows a month. It was gradual, but from the inside you could tell that something was changing. We went from really aggressively pushing for out-of-town shows, aggressively pushing for representation. At one point, we, and I would say probably around June, around the time this all was developing, we were actually in talks with a subsidiary of Warner Brothers Records, Rockridge Management and record label. We were actually passed on to the CEO of Rockridge. They eventually passed on us, but the fact that we went that far was, at least morally, significant. And I don't know.
So, I heard also one of the biggest demises, I guess, of the band was your New York tour. Had a vicious impact about as far as the actual breakup. Like, that was probably the straw that broke the camel's back.
Well, we booked a couple gigs in New York for the CBGB's Music Festival, which to us was a huge deal. I mean, we celebrated that pretty big. And throughout all the canceled gigs and the lack of enthusiasm, whatever, throughout the slope downhill, we kept these gigs booked. And eventually, in early October, I guess, early October, we went to go play these gigs in New York. And for me personally, I'd never been to New York. I'd never played a gig in New York. It was phenomenally exciting. When we got to New York, it was immediately apparent that the band was kind of slowing down, falling apart.
Give me examples.
Well,
Give me examples.
We were initially booked to play a gig at a venue called Arlene's Grocery, which is one of the... I mean, New York's a big town, obviously, but as far as clubs in New York go,
it's a
significant
side. Yeah.
It's a significant club.
Right.
It's not huge, but people know who.
No, I believe in indie venues in Lower East Side. Good.
Yeah,
that's pretty popular spot. Yeah.
So we were booked to play at Arlene's Grocery. I don't know what the motivation was. It might have been just an error in judgment. Far be it for me to decide, but we decided to trade our one night at Arlene's Grocery for 2 nights instead of one night playing at Arlene's Grocery, we played 2 different nights at smaller clubs, which ended up being a crucial mistake. We ended up playing to nobody both nights. Anyone would tell you that it's better to play to a sold-out crowd one night than to nobody 2 nights. I don't know if that makes sense the way I said it, but...
Yeah. So, how soon after the tour, the New York tour, did the band break up?
Well, the New York tour was riddled with petty arguments and drinking, and personally, I met Joaquin Phoenix that night.
Wow.
That was a pretty cool night, yeah.
That's pretty cool.
But
and where else did you guys go on your tour, that last tour?
the last tour was... we went to Philly one night, but we had to come back the night.
Correct. You guys had a show at Baltimore Folk Festival. I believe,
right, we played the Baltimore Folk Festival, we played Philly. The whole tour, it was a really disjointed tour. We came home pretty much every night on the tour. We came home. It wasn't really a tour so much.
Even in New York?
We stayed in New York overnight one night, and then after the second tour, we actually drove home that night.
Wow.
So,
from where?
From Brooklyn. I mean, from the Lower East Side. Yeah.
Did you drive home from Philly?
We drove home from Philly. Yeah.
Jesus.
So no, it wasn't really a tour so much. It was a string of out of town shows that we drove home from.
Wow.
And got home at 6 a.m. I mean, it wasn't a tour.
Because of why did you guys not have places to stay? Why did you not have?
Lack of planning, lack of foresight.
The band was breaking up.
The band was breaking up. Yeah. The whole thing was a result of the band not functioning properly. I don't know if it was everyone just kind of disillusioned to where things were heading, or if we just weren't firing on all cylinders. But I mean, as a member of the band, I can really honestly say that I could tell the band was breaking up probably sometime in early August. I didn't want to admit it, but I saw the writing on the wall. And sometime around early August was when I could probably say, I think this is going down a bad road. And that's really where my mindset changed from, I think this is where the next 10 years of my life is going to be spent, to, I think this is ending.
So what are you going to do for the next 10 years of your life?
I haven't decided yet. I love a lot of people in Frederick. Most of the people that I care about are in Frederick. And it's been a long time that I can say that I care about that many people. So part of me doesn't want to leave this area and abandon so many people that I give a shit about. But at the same time, I don't really want to be here. I don't have an answer to that. It's still work in progress, I guess.